Morning, all. All right, so we are going to look at the 2009-2010 season, only 14 years away from where we are right now, which tells you how many videos we have left in this series, and then it is done. That being said, the Washington Capitals had quite the regular season. We're not able to follow that up with a great postseason. We will talk about it. The Caps finished with 121 points, record of 54, 15, and 13, 313 goals scored, 227 goals against. Both Chris Clark and Alex Ovechkin wore the C that year for Washington. The New Jersey Devils finished 48, 27, and 7, so 103 points for them, 216 goals scored, 186 goals against. Jamie Langenbrunner, their captain at this time. The Buffalo Sabres, 45, 27, and 10 record, 100 points, 231 goals scored, 201 goals against. Craig Rivet, their captain in Buffalo. The Pittsburgh Penguins finished 47, 28, and 7, 101 points, 249 goals scored, 235 goals against. Remember again that Pittsburgh's below Buffalo because Buffalo won their division. Pittsburgh did not. Pittsburgh scores 249 goals, allows 235, and they're captained by Sidney Crosby. The Ottawa Senators, 44, 32, and 6 records, so 94 points for them, 220 goals scored, 233 goals against. Daniel Alfredson, the captain in Ottawa. The Boston Bruins finished 39, 30, and 13, 91 points, 196 goals scored, 191 goals against. Zdeno Chara, the captain in Boston. Philadelphia, 41, 35, and 6 record, 88 points, 232 goals scored, 222 goals against. Mike Richards, the captain in Philadelphia. The Montreal Canadiens, listed as not having a captain that season, 39, 33, and 10 record, 88 points, 210 goals scored, 218 goals against. So they finished 1 point above the playoff line, ahead of the New York Rangers, who finished 38, 33, and 11, 87 points for them, 219 goals scored, 214 goals against. Chris Drury, the captain in New York. The Atlanta Thrashers, 35, 34, and 13, 83 points, 230 goals scored, 250 goals against. Ilya Kovalchuk's the captain there until he is traded that season. The Carolina Hurricanes, 35, 37, and 10 record, 80 points, 226 goals scored, 251 goals against. Both Rod Brind'Amour and Eric Staal wore the C that year for Carolina. Tampa Bay, 34, 36, and 12 record, 80 points, 213 goals scored, 253 goals against. Vinny Lecavalier, the captain still in Tampa Bay. The New York Islanders, 34, 37, and 11 record, 79 points, 214 goals scored, 258 goals against. And Doug Weight, the captain in New York. The Florida Panthers finished 32, 37, and 13, 77 points, 202 goals scored, 234 goals against. Brian McCabe, the captain in Florida. Toronto finishes last in the East, 30, 38, and 14 record, 74 points, 210 goals scored, 263 goals against, and not listed as having a captain that season. Out west, San Jose's first again, 51, 20, and 11 record, 113 points, 257 goals scored, 209 goals against. Their captain, Rob Blake, that season. Chicago finishes second, 52, 22, and 8 record, 112 points, 262 goals scored, 203 goals against. Of course, they're captained by Jonathan Toews. The Vancouver Canucks, 49, 28, and 5 record, 103 points, 268 goals scored, 218 goals against. And this is that bewildering season with Roberto Luongo as the captain. It was weird to have a captain that's the goaltender and you can't put the C on their jersey, so they put it on the mask. It was odd. It didn't last that long. They tried something different. It didn't work. The Phoenix Coyotes, 50, 25, and 7 record, 107 points, 211 goals scored, 196 goals against, captained by Shane Doan. The Detroit Red Wings, 44, 24, and 14 record, 102 points, 223 goals scored, 207 goals against. Nicholas Lidstrom, still the captain in Detroit. The LA Kings, 46, 27, and 9 record, 101 points, 231 goals scored, 211 goals against. Dustin Brown, the captain in LA. The Nashville Predators, 47, 29, and 6 record, 100 points, 217 goals scored, 221 goals against. Jason Arnott is the captain in Nashville, and just above the playoff line with 95 points, the Colorado Avalanche, 43, 30, and 9. They were expected to finish outside the playoffs. They had a very hot start to the season and rode that to a playoff spot. 237 goals scored, 228 goals against. Adam Foote, the captain in Colorado. Just below the playoff line, St. Louis, 40, 32, and 10 record, 90 points, 218 goals scored, 218 goals against. Eric Brewer still the captain there. Calgary, the exact same record, 40, 32, and 10, 90 points, 201 goals scored, 203 goals against. Jerome McGinley, the captain there. And then the Anaheim Ducks, 39, 32, and 11 record, 89 points, 232 goals scored, 222 goals against. Scott Niedermayer, the captain. What's interesting is, with that 89 points, St. Louis, Calgary, and Anaheim all would have made the playoffs ahead of Philadelphia and Montreal in a 1 versus 16 type scenario. Philly and Montreal make the playoffs, and then they go on runs, both of them. So just an interesting note about the West having a little more depth maybe that year than the East. Dallas, 37, 31, and 14 record for 88 points, so the same number as both Philly and Montreal. 230 goals scored by Dallas, 244 goals against. Brendan Morrow, the captain in Dallas. Minnesota, 38, 36, and 8, 84 points, 214 goals scored, 239 goals against, and Mikko Koivu, the captain there. Columbus, 32, 35, and 13 record for 79 points, 214 goals scored, 249 goals against. Rick Nash, the captain in Columbus. In Edmonton, 27, 47, and 8 record, 62 points, so they're 12 points back of Toronto for the worst record in the NHL. 206 goals scored, 278 goals against. Ethan Morrow, still the captain in Edmonton. So the cap rises a little bit. $100,000 goes to $56.8 million. And we're not too far out from the next lockout. So the NHL, flat caps and lockouts. So yeah, anyways, that takes place. So a very small rise in the cap. Jim Balsley, or Balsillie. Either way, and if you watch the Blackberry Show, yes, that Jim Balsley, he attempts to buy the Arizona Coyotes. Now, it was a gutsy move by Jim, and he tries to basically wrestle control of the Coyotes away from the National Hockey League, the Coyotes being bankrupt and all that. He's trying to force them to Hamilton. The NHL basically forces him out. He had previously tried to move Nashville and Pittsburgh to Hamilton as well. He had a story and he stuck to it. The funny thing is the Blackberry series / movie only shows him trying to buy and move the Penguins. That's it. But he tried it with Nashville and he tried it with the Coyotes as well. In the case of the Coyotes, there was definitely more fans that agreed with him. Putting a team in Hamilton made a lot of sense. But putting a team in Hamilton, would Buffalo or Toronto have tried to block it? We'll never know. But he did. He tried. He fought. He took them to court, everything. And the NHL won the court case and pushed him out the door. Otherwise, he would have got his way and just been allowed to move the team. But that's not a thing, and I don't think that's ever going to happen, where an owner's going to strong-arm the league into his doing his will. So there's a trade freeze during the 2010 Olympics. Makes total sense. You don't want players to be distracted while they're playing for their country overseas. Don't be surprised in 2026 when we have a trade freeze during the Olympic break as well. July 1st of 2009, the Chicago Blackhawks signed Marian Hossa. So Hossa was becoming a bit of a meme at this point. He went to Pittsburgh, lost in the final. Went to Detroit, lost in the final. Now he goes to Chicago, and the idea was Chicago's going to make the final and lose. They didn't. So the Hossa jokes are going to be over by the time we reach July of 2010. June 26, 2009, the Ducks trade Chris Pronger and Ryan Dingle to the Flyers for Joffrey Lupul, Lucas Biza, a 2009 first, which was traded again, becomes John Moore, and a 2010 first, which becomes Emerson Edom, who had speed for days. July 8th of 2009, the Sens trade Alex Auld to the Dallas Stars for a 2010 sixth-round pick that they used to draft Mark Stone. So it's a trade that doesn't look like it's a big deal at the time, but looking back, Mark Stone was a pretty good player. September 18th of 2009, the Bruins trade Phil Kessel to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and this is a trade that favors Boston. 2010 first, which was Tyler Seguin, a 2010 second, which they used to draft Jared Knight, and then a 2011 first, which was used to draft Dougie Hamilton. I saw an argument in the comments about how Dougie Hamilton didn't become a good player until he left Boston. He was a good player in Boston. He did get better after he left, but he was still a pretty good player in Boston, and that trade really was quite lopsided in favor of the Boston Bruins. I think at the time, Brian Burke was thinking, all right, well, we can move a couple of first-round draft picks because with Kessel and with what we've got here, we'll be a better team. He calculated that one wrong. February 10th of 2010, or February 4th of 2010, I should say, the Thrashers trade Ilya Kovalchuk. Salmela goes along with him, and a 2011 fifth. Going back to Atlanta, Nicholas Bergfors, Cormier, Johnny Oduya, a 2010 first-round pick, which they used to draft Kevin Hayes, or was used to draft Kevin Hayes, and a 2010 second-round pick, which became Justin Hall. So Ilya Kovalchuk being traded by Atlanta, it really does show that Atlanta's time is almost done. It was a shame. You know, if Kovalchuk stays and if they'd had some kind of upward momentum in the standings, who knows, maybe they don't lose the arena. At any rate, it was really a sign that the Thrashers' time was winding down. December 21st of 2009, Marty Brodeur gets his 104th career shutout, which passes Terry Sawchuk for first on the all-time list. There was no All-Star game that year due to the Olympics, which shouldn't really be a surprise. Don't be surprised either when there isn't an All-Star game in 2026 because of the Olympic Games. The Canucks, because of those Olympics in 2010, had a 14-game road trip, which spanned across the Olympics. So it was a nice long road trip. The Canucks still managed 103 points that year, and we'll get to the playoffs. So the awards that year, the Art Ross Trophy goes to Henrik Sedin of the Vancouver Canucks. The Masterton goes to Jose Theodore of the Washington Capitals. The Calder goes to Tyler Myers of the Buffalo Sabres. Myers was an absolute beast his first season in the NHL. The Conn Smythe goes to Jonathan Toews of the Chicago Blackhawks. The Selke goes to Pavel Datsyuk of Detroit because he's still playing, so you got to give him the Selke. The Hart Trophy goes to Henrik Sedin of Vancouver. The Jack Adams goes to Dave Tippett in Phoenix. So again, the surprise team is the one that ends up having Coach of the Year. The Norris Trophy goes to Duncan Keith of the Chicago Blackhawks. The King Clancy goes to Shane Doan of the Phoenix Coyotes. Lady Byng goes to Marty St. Louis of the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Ted Lindsay goes to Alex Ovechkin of the Washington Capitals. The Rocket Richard goes to Sidney Crosby and Steven Stamkos. So Crosby in Pittsburgh, Stamkos in Tampa. Share that. Ovechkin was one goal short of sharing that trophy with them. The GM of the Year, Don Maloney of Phoenix, wins GM of the Year that year. That's become the Jim Gregory Award now. The Vezina goes to Ryan Miller of Buffalo, and the Jennings, for goals against, goes to Marty Brodeur of the New Jersey Devils. Your league all-stars that year, up the middle, Henrik Sedin of Vancouver, first team. Sidney Crosby of Pittsburgh, second team. On the left side, Alex Ovechkin of Washington's first team. Daniel Sedin of Vancouver, second team. On the right side, Patrick Kane of the Chicago Blackhawks, first team. Marty St. Louis of Tampa Bay, second team. On the blue line, Duncan Keith of Chicago and Mike Green of Detroit are your first team All-Stars. Drew Doughty of LA and Nicholas Lidstrom of Detroit, second team All-Stars. In net, Ryan Miller of Buffalo, first team All-Star. And Ilya Bryzgalov, the second team All-Star from Phoenix. He was picked up on waivers from Anaheim and turns out to be a pretty darn good goaltender, which doesn't help that Anaheim is now below the playoff line, watching Phoenix play games that matter. So Henrik Sedin, as mentioned, the leading scorer that year. 82 games, 29 goals, 83 assists, 112 points for Vancouver that season. Alex Ovechkin in Washington, 72 games, 50 goals, 59 assists, 109 points. Sidney Crosby in Pittsburgh, 81 games, 51 goals, 58 assists, 109 points. Nick Backstrom in Washington, 82 games, 33 goals, 68 assists, 101 points. Steven Stamkos in Tampa, 82 games, 51 goals, 44 assists, 95 points. Marty St. Louis, also in Tampa Bay, of course, 82 games, 29 goals, 65 assists, 94 points. Brad Richards in Dallas, formerly of Tampa, of course, 80 games, 24 goals, 67 assists for 91 points. Joe Thornton in San Jose, 79 games, 20 goals, 69 assists, 89 points. Patrick Kane in Chicago, 82 games, 30 goals, 58 assists, 88 points. Marian Gaborik with the New York Rangers at this stage, 76 games, 42 goals, 44 assists, 86 points. Excellent season for Gaborik that year. In net, your wins leader is Marty Brodeur of New Jersey. 45, 25, and 6 record, 916 save percentage, 9 shutouts. Evgeny Nabokov in San Jose, 44, 16, and 10 record, 922 save percentage, 3 shutouts. Ilya Bryzgalov in Phoenix, 42, 20, and 6 record, 920 save percentage, 8 shutouts. And Ryan Miller in Buffalo, 41, 18, and 8 record, 929 save percentage, and 5 shutouts. So, that brings us to the playoffs. The conference quarterfinals, or first round, if you will. Detroit beats Phoenix. It takes all 7 games, but they get past the Coyotes. Vancouver beats LA in 6 games. Chicago beats Nashville in 6 games. The San Jose Sharks beat Colorado in 6 games. The Pittsburgh Penguins, as we get over to the eastern side, they beat Ottawa also in 6 games. Boston beats Buffalo in 6 games. Philadelphia beats New Jersey in 5. So a little bit easier time for Philadelphia there. And Montreal with the biggest upset easily of those playoffs, knocking out Washington in 7, as Yaroslav Halak played out of his mind in that series. So we get to the conference semifinals. Chicago beats Vancouver 4-2. A series which had me yelling at the TV a lot, gotta be honest. San Jose beats Detroit 4-1. Philadelphia beats Boston 4-3. So Philadelphia, who wouldn't have made the playoffs in the West, are now in the conference final. And against the other team that would not have made the playoffs in the West, the Montreal Canadiens, Montreal beats Pittsburgh 4-3. So Jaro Halak knocks out Ovechkin, then he knocks out Crosby. And I'm sure National Hockey League was like, great, that'll be great for the ratings. Fantastic. So in the conference finals, you've got Chicago and San Jose against one another. Chicago wins in San Jose the first 2 games by scores of 2-1 and 4-2. And then they make quick work of the series. They win 3-2 in overtime and 4-2 to sweep the series in 4 games. The Philadelphia Flyers, they have a little bit of an easy time with Montreal. Maybe Montreal was out of gas after playing 14 games combined against Washington and Pittsburgh. But Philadelphia wins both games at home, both by shutout, 6-0 and 3-0. Montreal wins 5-1 to get on the board, but then Philadelphia wins 3-0, and then they win at home 4-2 to win the series in 5 and go to a Stanley Cup final between Philadelphia and Chicago. In that final, Chicago wins an 11-goal game that first time out, 6-5. Then they win 2-1, so it looks like this might be quick, but Philadelphia fights their way back. They win at home 4-3 in overtime and 5-3. Chicago wins a wild one, 7-4 in Game 5, before winning in overtime 4-3 on a goal that initially people weren't sure went in the net, but it did. And so Chicago wins the series in 6 games, their first of what would be 3 Stanley Cups in 6 seasons. Patrick Kane, 3 goals and 5 assists in that Stanley Cup final. Of course, the Conn Smythe went to Jonathan Toews. Duncan Keith, a goal and 6 assists. Toews, surprisingly quiet during the final, 3 assists, but his role is defensive as well, so there's that. Niemi had an .882 save percentage in that final. This is where the narrative came out that, okay, you don't need a great goaltender. Look at these teams. On the Philadelphia side, Briere had 3 goals, 9 assists, so really good final for Danny Briere. Hartnell had 5 goals, 4 assists, and Ville Leno had himself a run, 3 goals and 6 assists. He parlayed that into a pretty big contract too. Michael Layton, .876 save percentage, and Brian Boucher, .846 save percentage in that final. Philadelphia was goaltending by committee, and in Chicago, Antti Niemi was the good, not great goaltender that won in 2010. So again, the narrative became one of, all right, so you don't need a great goaltender. 2011 and 2012 would kind of switch that narrative a little bit as we watched Tim Thomas and then Jonathan Quick go on amazing runs for their teams respectively, but those are the upcoming videos. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you've not done so already. I should also mention that in the series where Philadelphia beat Boston, Philadelphia was down 3-0 against Boston and roared back. So there you go. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.